Okay, hello. So, long time no video because I've been very busy. But I thought since everyone's stuck inside at the moment, we can't go out and do anything, I would make something that I've been meaning to make for a while, which is a very easy project to do. So if you're a beginner sewer, you should be able to get by with this. So what I'm going to be making is these makeup removing rounds, cotton rounds, whatever you want to call them. I've been wanting to make some reusable ones of these just because, I go through like 1 or 2 of these a day, removing makeup if I'm wearing makeup that day, or applying toner or whatever it is, and really it just seems incredibly wasteful. Even though they're cotton and they will break down, I still just think having something I can chuck in the wash would be a million times easier. I have seen a few pictures online of people making them. There's probably other tutorials out there, but I thought I'd make one. So what we need to make this is some cotton fabric. I've got a few scraps, and then I also bought this really cute little cat one. This one was from Spotlight. These ones were from Darn Cheap. And then also this is kind of more for a decorative side of it. For the actual makeup removing side of it, I've got this flannelette. This is 100% cotton as well. This one I got from Darn Cheap, along with the toweling. Toweling is just a little bit rougher, so this one probably would be really good for more removing makeup. Flannelette probably better for toners and stuff, and they're both cotton, and I think that's very important when you're putting it against your skin. They're going to wash up nicely. You can put them in a hot wash and not worry about it. So those are the fabrics you need. Then just some scissors and pins and stuff to cut everything out. And also I'm going to use this to trace out the shape. So I'm going to show you how you make this. I am going to be using an overlocker to do the edges just because it's going to be the easiest way to do it. You can use a zigzag stitch if you don't have an overlocker. Otherwise, I might show you how to do one with binding if you want a really, really neat finish. It's just going to have a little bit of a stiffer edge. So if you do want to do it with binding, this is the binding I'm going to be using. This is a 12mm cotton bias binding. You can make your own. I often do. They're a bit of fun to make. And once it's applied, it's going to be half the width, like that. So you can get wider if you want wider. It's often easier to sew. So if you are a beginner sewer, you might want to go for a 20 or 25mm. You can end up with a bigger edge around the outside, but it's probably going to be a little bit easy to deal with. But I'll show you one with that as well as one with the overlocker. If you have an overlocker or a zigzag stitch, it's going to be a little bit quicker. So let's get started. I'll show you everything. I'm filming this on my phone, so the quality might not be perfect, but hopefully it's okay. There's not going to be too many really fine details you need to look at. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is trace this shape onto some paper. This is just notepad paper. It's nothing fancy. And it doesn't need to be a perfect trace because really this is just for a guideline on size and shape. These don't need to be perfect. They're not to fit the body. They're not for anything like that. So just general shape. Wow, that pen doesn't show up very well on camera, but that's all right. I can see it. That's the main thing. I will just show you how I've laid these out. So because these fabrics are all different widths, I should have said as well at the start, with the fabric, you really only need 10 or 20 centimeters of it. If you got like half a meter, that's going to be ample. You can probably make something else. These ones are just little scrap pieces, which is why they're kind of like already cut into and there's not much of them left. But really, when the shape is only this big, like I can get so many out of this already. But what I've done is, because they're all different lengths, like they're all finishing at different points, I've lined up one edge of them all along here, so I know if I begin cutting here and I don't go too far this way, that they're all going to cut out okay. So I'm probably going to cut a few out of these fabrics and then lay out the other fabrics I have and cut those out. Okay, so I'm on to the next fabric. So I've just done the same thing and lined them up along a straight edge. And I just thought I'd show you how I'm pinning these on. I was using 3 pins, and because I've only traced out one, just cutting them out and then pinning another one down. If you wanted to, you could easily trace out a heap of these and then put them all over, or even trace it directly onto the fabric. If you're going to do that, I would use a tailor's chalk or these friction pens. They're removed by friction but also by heat, so if you then go and iron it, the texture's going to come off, or if you put it in a hot wash, it'll also come off. I usually use these because they're pretty good colours and they stand out. I have used a lot of these to death, and they last quite a long time. I really like them, and they go away with ironing, which is beautiful. So I'm going to cut a few more of these out. Okay, so I've cut all of these out, and now what I'm going to do is prep them to go over to the sewing machine. And because I'm not going to be turning in any edges or anything like that, this is just how they are, I'm going to just need them to stay together so that when I'm overlocking, you know, one doesn't twist out from underneath the other one. You could use pins for this. It's probably going to be the easiest way. You just have to keep taking them out as you're sewing, and I'm not for that. I like to just go quickly. So what I'm actually going to use is this glue pen. It's literally a glue stick, but it washes out, so it doesn't last forever. It holds pretty strong, but it's definitely not, you know, a forever hold. So you do need to stitch over it. So I've just put like a tiny amount, not much, just enough to make it tacky. And then I'll take this circle and put it over the top. Just press it in a little bit just so it holds, and that way it won't slip the edges when I'm putting it through the overlocker. So I'm going to do that for all of these. I ended up cutting just over 16, maybe 20 of these. I'll count and find out. But I wanted to make enough for at least like 2 each day, so 14 total. So then I can have some in the wash, some ready to be used, and just keep cycling through them. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue them to the back, and then I'll take you over to the overlocker, and I'll show you that, as well as to the regular machine, and show you the bias binding. Okay, so I've prepped all of these and I'm over at my overlocker. I do have an industrial overlocker, but they work very similar to your regular one. Things might look a little bit different, but same thing. You still got your tensions, you still got your threads, everything still looks the same. Still got a little knife in there. So what I'm going to do first is change the thread, because I have blue thread on here and these are black and white. So I'm going to change it to black just because I think that's going to have the neatest finish. I'm going to show you a little trick on how to change these. So the easiest way is to cut it off right here, leave all of this still threaded, and then we'll take new thread, and I'm going to knot this to this. I'll just need to put the camera down for a second. Okay, so I ended up changing all of these. I've just knotted them together. The main one you need to worry about is the needle one, because you can't get a knot, oh, I don't know if you can see it, through that needle eye. It's not going to fit, and you don't want to break the needle. So cut that off in there, and then all I'm going to do is move this light out of the way a bit, lift up the foot and pull. If you find that it's getting stuck, you might need to loosen the tension discs. That'll just help it come through. Now both those threads are black. That is just the easiest way, especially when you look at overlockers. Like, I'm not going to be rethreading all that. You got to be crazy if you're going to make me do all that. So now I'm going to pull this one through. I find the top one has a little bit more pressure on the tension disc, so I'm going to loosen that up, and I'm going to pull it through with some tweezers just because I can't get my fingers in there easily. I won't be able to film that, but I'm doing essentially the same thing as I did then, and once it's through, then I'll put it through the needle. That's all rethreaded. I'm going to set this up. Haven't got my machine on yet because it's very noisy once it's on and you wouldn't be able to hear me speak, but I'm going to go around this, and then as I'm going around, I'm going to begin cutting off all of these just overlaying bits where it wasn't cut perfectly with the knife there, so I'm just going to keep an eye on that point, making sure it's cutting off nicely all the way around. And when I get back to the end, I'm just going to pull the fabric out of the way. I'm going to try to film this. It is a little bit hard because this is a very loud and shaky machine. So if the footage is just the camera vibrating, I apologize. I will try to film it though. Okay, I apologize if all you saw was my hand then, but pretty much what I was trying to do is work a little bit, lift the foot up to pivot, work a little bit, lift the foot up, pivot, and so on. If you're using a zigzag stitch on your foot, using a zigzag stitch on your machine, do the same thing as you're going around. Just because it is a circle, it's a little bit harder to, you know, sew, but it's not a garment. So if it's not perfect, it's not the end of the world. Okay, all of these are done. So I'm going to give these a wash before I use them on my face, just because sewing machines have oil. I also sew all types of fabric. I just would like to clean them before I put them against my skin. But now I'm going to move on to this. So I'm just going to sew it on my regular sewing machine, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So this technique is something that can be used on any sort of hem, neckline, armhole finish. It's a really nice way to finish things off. So basically what I'm going to be doing is lining this up, folding out this channel, and I'm going to be stitching right in that channel. And the reason you need to use bias binding for this is because of these curves, and it's the same if you're doing a neckline or anything. Bias binding has the ability to curve quite nicely while still sitting flat. If you use something not on the bias, it will bubble up and it won't sit right. So what I'm going to do is stitch this like this all the way around. That's the first step. So this is similar to the overlocker. Because we're working on such a tight curve, you may need to pick up the foot and move it around just a little bit every few stitches if you feel like you can't push it under the foot, because you don't want to be pushing things into the foot or pulling behind. If you pull behind, you're going to end up stretching things. So we just want to ease it around the curve, and if you're finding it's getting a little bit too tight of a curve, just pick up the foot and move the fabric around. Okay, we're getting to where we started, so what I'm going to do is cut this just with about a centimetre overlap and lay this down exactly, or as close to, again, this is a makeup remover, it doesn't need to be perfect. Go back to secure it and cut it off. So now that is looking a little bit like that. Now what I'm going to do is go around this edge and just trim it down so that I can fold this over neatly. Okay, so now I'm going to fold this over in half and fold it so it just covers the stitching. It's hard to see because I'm using black on black, but I'm going to fold this over the edge so it looks like this and this. And I'm going to top stitch right along that edge there. So there's that style done. So that's the right side and that's the wrong side. So you can see it creates a neater finish on the edge than this because it doesn't have that overlocking stitch showing. but it does create a slightly thicker edge because there's the extra fabric bulk. This is a really nice finish and I really like using it for a lot of things. For this kind of a thing I probably wouldn't bother because it just is a lot quicker to do something like this. But this is a good way if you only have a straight stitch or you want to practice this technique. This would be a good way to do it. Okay, so those are my makeup removing little cotton pads. And I'm really happy with how these turned out. I think it's a really good project if you want to learn to sew because you're going to be practicing sewing curves, which is always a tricky thing but necessary for things like armholes, necklines, sleeves. They all have curves in them and they can be kind of the hardest things to sew. So it's a good way to get started. You're using cotton, which is a really basic, easy fabric and relatively easy to find too. Like I said, patchwork cotton is the best. I'll link down below, if I can, the exact fabrics. If not, I'll just link to the websites of the places I got them from. Your local fabric store should have them. Things like toweling and flannelette might be a little bit harder to find, but you can even use an old towel, old face washer, an old flannel pair of pajamas or something even, as long as they're in good quality and you feel comfortable putting it against your face. Yeah, I'm really happy with how these turned out. I'm hoping to make some more videos on how to get into sewing and how to start learning, how to get into fashion design and everything like that too. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Hopefully I can have a little bit more time now that everyone's stuck at home to film some more videos. Maybe over Easter I'll be able to do it. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye!